Good morning, Your Excellencies, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen. I'm Matt Johnson. I'm the CSO at Ledger, and I wanted to start by thanking you for the opportunity and the great honour and privilege it is for me to be here today to have the opportunity to speak with you. I'd also like to say a big thank you to our sponsors, Hack in the Box, Disrupt AD, the Cybersecurity Council of the United Arab Emirates, the Dubai Electronics Centre, and the Department of Culture and Tourism. So thank you. So I get to stand here this morning with you for almost an hour, and I want to try and make the best of that time and make it worth your while. None of us can get this moment back. But before I get into my agenda, I'd like to take a moment to frame why it is that we're actually here. We're here for the people. We're here for our customers, we're here for our future customers, and we're here for any person or institution who is willing to take that leap of faith towards Web3 and crypto. But I'll get into all of that a little bit later. What I'd like to do today is to help set the scene for the next couple of days of presentation, speakers, training events, breakout sessions, and with a view to some of the challenges we're seeing across the market. I'm going to be talking about Ledger, where I'm from, and what Ledger's reason to be is. We'll talk about blockchain technology and how it's actually changing the world. The global adoption for crypto and how it is emerging and the pace at which it's moving. I'll then touch briefly upon some of the things that we're actually seeing in the market, and then moving in to build upon some of the comments that His Excellency Dr. Mohammed Al-Kuwaiti made around the need for education, awareness, security. Talk a little bit about how Ledger helps, but then I also want to do a piece in focusing on why developers are key. The developers are our future, and we need to remember that and make things as easy as possible, and the challenges in our world. So, what is Ledger's reason to be? Why do we exist, and how do we fit into the future is now for the payments ecosystem? I'm going to give a little bit away about my age here, and what I'd like to do is just to ask for a short show of hands for anybody who actually remembers this advert. So, can you put your hand up if you remember this advert? Okay, I'm not surprised. I'm probably one of the older ones in the group here. So this was an advert that was run by Apple back in 1984. When Apple began, they ran this advert directly to target and against IBM. It's important to remember that where they came from, they were the very little fish in a much, much bigger pond. And they were trying to push for something better for the people. And that was 38 years ago. You've got to remember that human choice is historically constrained by power. Think of all of the moments in history where we as people are repeating ourselves time and again, pushing with the same altruistic or at times hateful intentions, where we're gathering people to our cause, creating these new paradigms, and then think of Ledger. Ledger is a French company, and the French have a history of a people that's to create revolution. And as I've said, we've been in this moment before. Apple, revolt. Just take a moment to look around the world where we are today. We are in this moment again. We're in an incredible period of transition in the world where it comes to how we connect with things like crypto, DeFi, and how we close ourselves off. We see some governments are actually focusing more towards wanting to censor. Some governments are focusing towards wanting to ban crypto. And how we change the way that we value life. We're in the middle of a horrifying pandemic that's changed the way that we've all had to interact with one another. Looking out upon you all today, seeing masks everywhere, seeing everybody having to be split far apart, keeping our distance. Just think of all of the changes that have happened in our society over the last 2 years, and indeed what we had to go through just to be here today. Flying, travelling, airport, PCR tests. We are having to make all of these changes. So the revolutionaries have become the monopolies. Throughout time, historically, the revolutionaries have become those monopolies. While they try to stay altruistic to their needs of serving the people, business often takes over, and at times the desire for revenue may eventually conflict with or even trump morality and intention. If we think of Facebook, we've now rebranded to Meta, and if we think about Cambridge Analytica and the data scandal that was involved between the two, The duopoly that Facebook and Google have currently reached with advertising and how that's changed how information is learned and shared and trusted around the world. Amazon has changed the meaning of small business and automation, and these are challenges that will only continue to scale. We've moved from a technical and information revolution into a revolution of value. Human inventions change humanity. I mean, go figure, it's what they do. But every invention has its good and its bad. Fire as an invention, is it good or is it bad? Plastics, are they good or are they bad? They can be used. Regardless if it's good or if it's bad, it drives change. The printing press started a revolution, and it just didn't make books available, it changed who could read. Once people started reading, they had the ability to share ideas, and that impacted profound social, religious, scientific and cultural impacts. The internet was a revolution of information. We are now faced with that revolution of value. And here's a prediction from me. Everyone will end up owning crypto. Everyone will end up interacting with systems or services that use the fundamental underlying technologies as they go about their daily lives that are currently used today to enable crypto and alternative payments. In fact, many of you may not actually know this, you already do. Global trade is currently worth about 19 trillion USD per year. And the vast majority of goods that are shipped in steel shipping containers and go around the world currently use a permissioned blockchain system to do that. It's completely transformed the way that the shipping industry is done using blockchain technology. It's a joint venture between Maersk and IBM, and it's revolutionised the way that they did it. In 1998, there were people who thought they wouldn't need to have an email address. Just think about that for a moment. Likewise, we're going to see a shift in the financial services coming, and in 10 years, you will be able to buy apples at a farmer's market using this same technology that I just described, crypto blockchain. We're going to have that revolution of the redistribution of value. Now, Ledger was founded more than 3 decades after Microsoft and Apple. They became the hardware, firmware, and software leaders working to create change in the space, and that's ultimately created these new issues. Security, financial literacy, once again going back to the education piece that His Excellency Dr. Kuwaiti mentioned, autonomy and privacy. That seeds the grounds for our own revolution. I use these slides here from an Endelman Trust survey because they showcase just how deeply individuals are starting to not trust government or even more the media. They believe that businesses must step in and lead the way to create change. I'd like to call out the 3 top priority shifts in here, and we're seeing a shift really to the personal. We're seeing people prioritising family and their needs, increasing my media and information literacy, and increasing my scientific literacy. These themes are playing to the new revolution, a need to maintain financial independence and security as trust in these major institutions is being seen to wane. It's also a need for increased literacy and understanding, but I'll touch on more on that a little bit later. So the new revolutionary period is amongst us. A number of other speakers over the next couple of days are going to touch on these topics: innovation, revolution, education, security, pace of change. So this is just setting the scene and the groundwork for all of those. So we must help rise up and frame that for how we go forward. So Ledger is the global platform for crypto and Web3. It was founded in 2014, and I'd just like to remind you that Bitcoin didn't come about until after the economic collapse of 2008. After that economic collapse in 2008, it became abundantly clear to people that there was a need for a new financial system, a decentralised one, where the person alone has control and freedom over their finances. And that began the revolution we see today, which is crypto. So hopefully many of you are familiar with Ledger, know it and know about its products. I'm not going to go into a speech on different sorts of custody, different wallets types, all the rest of it, but I will just touch on these things that Ledger's the global leader for securing digital assets, and I talk about digital assets here, not just cryptocurrencies. So that could be NFTs, we're working through identity, things like securing deeds, title deeds to houses. This is all pieces that are coming. But Ledger, we currently secure more than 15% of the total crypto assets around the world. We've got more than 4 million of our units are out there. We've got more than 60 financial institutions using our Ledger Enterprise services. So we've got the business-to-consumer business where we sell the nano hardware device, so keeps your keys secure, offline, never exposed to the internet. And we've also got the B2B, the business-to-business, which is our Ledger Enterprise Vault, which is where all of our financial institutions and large organisations use. What's key within all of those offerings is that they've been built on the single premise. You are in control of your own assets. If you don't hold your keys, if you don't protect those, you do not have control. There's a saying within the crypto space, not your keys, not your assets. So if you hold an account on an exchange, guess what? They actually still have access and you are not in control. You must maintain those keys and manage them on yourself. So why it actually matters. We're going to touch on, and once again, the speakers around here today are going to be talking about why devices are insecure. We've got a room full of people who know how to hack, how to break, how to compromise. We know that that's going to happen, and the devices that we rely upon on a day-to-day basis, you know, the phones, the laptops, all of those things in your hotel room, they will be broken. We can't rely upon those, so we need to move to the Web3, the secure technology, and Ledger actually provides that device. So you'll be able to maintain the ultimate control of your hard-earned finances and assets. And alongside that, Ledger has 4 pillars that we work on. We want to look at discovery, connectivity, safety, and security. And that's the basis of the platform that we're building for Web3. Helping users find the right services. Connectivity, inside and out, we've got the companion Ledger Live app. Safety, we've got a secure channel so that you will actually see the address that you're actually signing and physically confirm it on a non-connected device, so on the Nano itself or on the PSD for the Ledger Vault. So you can't have that address spoofed. You know that when you're actually signing and saying yes, that is the address that it is going to. And also that your keys are always offline. They are never exposed to the internet. They're never exposed to that point of compromise. So going back to that, then the only other way, if you're becoming the bank yourself, it means you've got to do that security piece yourself. So my only reminder will be, please never, ever, ever expose your 24 words. Okay. Blockchain technology is changing the world. So let's have a quick little history lesson as I skip down there. Story about the internet. Web 1, open protocols, decentralized. So once again, who remembers sort of MySpace? Anybody in the audience remember actually MySpace? Yeah, okay, so I'm starting to come into the age bracket now with the rest of the group. So MySpace, founded back in 2003, very much a Web 1 service, and I'll talk a little bit more about that. Web 2, centralized services run by the corporations. When it was free, you were the product. So what they wanted to do was to collect all of the data about you and then actually serve you back content that meant that they could actually drive the ad revenue. Web 3, this is where we're stepping into now. This is our future. Decentralized, driven by the community. You know, there's a shift in the incentive model. The incentive isn't about how much I can reward you for collecting and retaining all of this information yourself. It's by the work that you do and what you can actually push back out there. So, and that's all enabled by blockchain technology. Web 1. Nobody knew how big this thing, the internet, was going to be. Yeah. It was, you just couldn't imagine it. So you used to have a modem, it would make these weird noises. I remember my mum would pick up the phone to call her friend, would get the static hiss in her ear. I'd get screamed at. I'd then get upset because my download had failed. You know, all of these challenges that were going on. There were very few services that weren't World Wide Web based, very static content. You had the likes of Napster and ICQ. In terms of adoption, blockchain is at 1998. That is where we are. So if we take the history of the internet and look at the pace of growth that occurred from Web 1 through to where we are now, Our adoption period, we are at 1998. But we're actually growing even faster than what we did because we're building upon the internet and how that worked and how that grew. So if we hit Web 2, how fast is it going to be and what's it going to be? So that leads me into security. So a little bit of a history about security. If I quote Isaac Newton, and hopefully many of you will have heard this, if I've seen further, it is by standing on the shoulders of giants. He said this in 1675, and it still holds true today. Our view and approach to security has been built upon furthering what has come before to make it more secure and continue to build on those themes. It's also interesting to note the pace of vulnerability discovery and disclosure has increased. We have more researchers coming into the space, and our technical literacy is increasing. So this leads me to where we are with blockchain today. Blockchain, it shifts the security challenge onto the endpoints. Okay, it provides us with these 4 points. Decentralization, it's not in one location, fully transparent. When you push it out there and it's on the chain, it can be seen. We know that it's there. Self-custody, we have to learn to trust ourselves. Self-sovereignty, we have that control. And the empowerment, we choose how and when. So it provides us with those 4 pillars, and we must remember that. So when I talk about the shift in security challenge from, let's capture all of the network to let's hack all of the endpoints, I also mean that we're seeing these changes at the protocol levels themselves already. We're in the 1998 and we've just seen a major release with Taproot for blockchain. Okay? So we're repeating the process, the cycle is beginning, and Taproot is just the start. There's, the Bitcoin network is only one of many chains. So you're going to see this repeated. Smart contract construction, validation, coin integration, it just continues. So if we're in the 1998 as we know it today, we're incredibly early and we're already moving faster than before. So crypto adoption is emerging and we are still very, very early. Mainstream curiosity is here. Now, I say curiosity because what we're seeing across the market is a lot of people are still taking bets. Every week we're seeing a new project, we're seeing a new coin, we're seeing a new chain. There are literally hundreds and thousands of them out there. We're seeing these new projects standing up and people are starting to take their bets on where will this go, where will it do. So we're not yet in the mass adoption, but we are in the mass curiosity. And we need to continue to drive the secure adoption following all of this. Looking around the room, I can see a lot of people, and I can safely say that by being here, you are part of the highly educated, technology literate group of people, a part of the early adopters. However, we, as a group, still make up a tiny fraction of those who have access to traditional financial services, let alone alternative financial services, and we're an even smaller fraction of the global population. So we need to move from mainstream curiosity to mainstream adoption. So curiosity applies not only to individuals, but also to governments. We've seen governments dipping their toe in the water, and some other governments have actually been wholeheartedly embracing it. But there are some choppy waters ahead. Regulation. Regulation and other barriers to entry remain. China has banned cryptocurrency, and it has impacted the market. India is trying to ban it as a payment, but at the same time regulating it as an asset. The UAE is opening doors for creative futures. And once again, we've just touched on the embrace of the UAE moving from an E-government to an M-government to a smart government. So we have this technology playing it before. So if that's what's come before, what's next? What else are we seeing in the market? In the context of crypto, you've got to remember that it is a global conversation. One of the top 3 cities for digital asset adoption is actually Lagos in Nigeria. The first country to become a Bitcoin country was El Salvador, where there are different needs from inflation, more challenging access to resources, and challenging government and setups. This is where the individuals are starting to take that bet on trusting themselves and using crypto or alternative payments. We're having to become the bank ourselves. It means we need to take the security view. For us to trust ourselves, it means we must secure ourselves. We also must accept that we're operating in a global ecosystem and not a local one. Most crypto users are in rising economies at this stage. As I mentioned before, it's not the traditionally dominant countries who are leading the charge. China's banned. The G8 is debating stable coins. And in the United States, they've just signed the infrastructure bill, which adds taxation into crypto. And we're seeing further looming regulation ahead. To those where there is need, state is allowing for risk. Think of the risk the individuals who came to the United States before it was called the US. In the UAE, where we are today, we're less than 100 years old, and it's already becoming a global financial market and hub in the region, and it will only just continue. So what's happening next? Crypto's overtaking market on a country-by-country basis. In the New World Order, we don't just think about large amounts of money, we think about the increased value of small transactions. We're at the beginning, and we experiment in the beginning. You buy a cup of coffee, not a car. You test the boundaries and the comfort zones and the use cases. And this is how we should think about individuals using crypto around the globe. But business institutions and governments don't just buy cups of coffee. They are already taking larger steps because they want to remain at the forefront and seize this where they can. But remember back to my early slide. People have a distrust of governments and media at this moment. So there's a dichotomy being played out here between the market and the market forces and the market pressures. You can now actually buy a car with crypto and you can buy a house. But mainstreams means being able to make your everyday purchases every day. At a country level, countries can do whatever they please. We can have a country that bans crypto. Country beside it will then open up and become a safe haven for it. If one locks down, the other opens. China, while blocking cryptocurrencies, is moving full speed ahead with its digital yuan, or its e-yuan. With the backing of the Chinese government, I'm sure it's going to be a success in meeting what they set it out to do. If we look at El Salvador, it's moved forward with the adoption of cryptocurrency. But how was it actually able to thrive there? The ground for this adoption was ripe. Approximately 80% of the population in El Salvador did not have access to traditional financial services, but more than 80% had access to a mobile phone. So if we'd seen perhaps greater market penetration of the likes of PayPal and Venmo, would we have actually seen El Salvador do this adoption of Bitcoin as it has? I believe yes, but I believe that the time frame may have been slightly different. Money is technology. Money is no longer just money, it's value. And the one thing that I'd really like to highlight on this slide here is this stat here, that 80% of the transactions are actually being cross-border. So what we're seeing is more than 80% of people who are buying and investing in crypto are actually having to do so across a border to get onto an exchange. So they may not have a local exchange or be able to buy it locally. They are actually buying it across that border, cross-border serves. Okay. Markets accelerating. I've spoken on a number of occasions about pace of change, speed of change, that we're in the 1998 and it's just rocketing. But what I'd like to do is to just highlight, how much. We've seen a 400% increase in the crypto market cap and the year-on-year growth. Okay. I just can't state how fast, rapid and huge this growth has been. But on the flip side of that, 71% of the individual survey feel that cybersecurity is the primary barrier of entry into the digital markets. So if people don't feel safe and secure, why are they then going to take the step forward and take that leap into Web3, into the crypto economy? And once again, going back to Dr. Mohammed Al-Kuwaiti's opening remarks, where he said about the need for education, the need for awareness, the need for community. We need to make sure that this happens so that we can reduce that 71% of individuals who feel that cybersecurity is the primary barrier. In 2021, so far, there's been more than 2 million Bitcoin transactions worth more than 1 million in value each. So that's across the entire Bitcoin network. So that's a lot. For Ledger Enterprise, the average size of transaction that we're seeing is ranging from between 2 and 4 million. That's just the average. The number of high-value transactions on the blockchain is just increasing and growing rapidly. And the industry needs to keep moving and make sure that it is securing those values. So this plays back to my previous points. So we need to make sure that it's secure. What you see is what you sign, and you retain control of your keys. So as I've just highlighted, the security risk is unprecedented. I'd like to do another show of hands, if I may. This website, actually it's a software wallet integration, and it's asking you to join if you hold multiple wallets. But once again, this is another challenge that we're seeing in the industry, where coin support is very challenged by who offers that coin support and integration. So you find people who are taking their early bets, who are adopting, might not hold just one type of hardware wallet or indeed software wallet, or indeed have an account on exchange. They have multiple. In fact, it is much more likely that if you hold one, that you will hold 3 or more. Okay? This site is actually here to try and say, hey, we can actually bring all of those together. So instead of you having to manage 3 different devices, 4 different exchanges, 3 different software wallets, we can combine all of those. Is this real or is this fake? So can I just ask for a show of hands for people who think that this might be real? Okay, so we've got a few people. Who thinks that this is fake? So another show of hands. Okay, so the answer is this one is actually fake. This is a scam website. And what it is actually doing, it is playing on the need for simplicity. Okay? And we're seeing an awful lot of this out in the market space. So with those services not being universally supported, we're getting this sort of thing all the time. So once again, it goes to my earlier comment about developers, need for simplification, and we need to keep working to make it more secure. Security risks are only growing. This year will be the worst year for cybercrime. I actually said that last year, and I was right last year when I said that last year would be the worst year, and it was. And I can use exactly the same comment and say that next year, and I will still be correct too. I look forward to the day when this trend stops, but the more people who adopt, it means the more targets that are out there for the scammers. Later today, Caesar, the CTO from IO Active Labs, will be doing a presentation specifically on DeFi cyber challenges, with the opportunity to go into a lot more detail in this space. And we've got a number of other presentations who touch on these and address it, as well as the technical tracks. Ledger has invested thousands of person days effort over the last year targeting cyber criminals, working to close down scamming websites and working to remove some of these threats. Now, we're tackling this across not just websites such as I showed you earlier, not just websites like this, but where we're seeing it on Telegram, Twitter, Reddit, Facebook, social media. We're not just targeting the scammers that are doing this, we're actually targeting individuals that are selling counterfeit goods, pre-seeded devices that are going out into the market. Now, I'm hoping that I'll have another opportunity to be able to come back and actually deep dive into detail on just what we've been doing around protecting the ecosystem. But what I would do is I would put a call to, a rallying call to everyone in this room, every organisation in every country. We need to work together to help target and make the ecosystem safer for one and for all. Only until we do that will we see the drop in that 71% of people who see cybersecurity as a barrier of entry into the crypto ecosystem. The majority of these attacks are launched from a very small number of providers. More than half of the sites have been registered via Namecheap. And I'll actually call out Namecheap here. I know many people in the cyber industry using them may have had similar challenges in dealing with them. And I would call on Namecheap to actually try and improve their way of working, what it is they do, their verification, and to help stop some of the things that are actually being run through their platforms and being shut down. So we've closed down more than 500 websites. We've got major initiatives underway with Etherscan.io and Bitcoin abuse. So we're actually flagging scam wallets and making sure that they're aware. On average, it takes us 4 days from reports to shut down a website. I'm wanting to get that down to about 4 hours, but obviously there are a lot of challenges with that. I'm asking for the community's help in reporting this and obviously working with the partners to secure the ecosystem. So how do we protect ourselves? And we protect ourselves with education. Coming back to financial literacy, security awareness, education is essential for the future of secure alternative payment systems. Otherwise, we're going to continue to be looked at as the Wild West. We're going to have people who are coming in, receiving advice, bad advice, being scammed, losing money, losing out, and therefore they'll be forever burnt, and then they will walk away and they will tell all of their friends, don't go and do that thing, it's bad. So the only way that we can secure around this is through education. We've got to target literacy. Ledger's partnered with Binance in this case, and we're actually doing a number of things going out to market to increase education. But I'd actually ask everybody, to make sure that you're getting your information from reliable sources. So ledger.com, we've got Ledger Academy. We've got the School of Block, great resources there if you want to go and actually educate yourself and your family about crypto and alternative payments. There are some other really good resources out there. Crypto Casey is another one of my favourites. So please make sure that you get that, because what we're also seeing is a rise in fake education. We're seeing a rise in scam education sites that once again are playing to the scammers. So make sure that you do the right research and you get it from the reputable resource. I remember in the old days when ATMs first came about, before ATMs, I couldn't withdraw cash unless I went to a brick and mortar bank when it was open. They weren't open on weekends. They shut for an hour over lunch. I could not get access to my cash. ATMs were this revolution allowing me financial freedom to access this thing that I needed, this cash. But with that, we had a PIN. And there was a large educational piece that went around about never reveal your PIN. Don't give it out to anywhere. Don't write it on your card. Don't keep it in your wallet. And we're in that same stage now with cryptocurrency. We're having to do that education piece to make sure everybody doesn't. So curiosity is okay if you're educated, but education must be spread. We're highly educated technical individuals here, but that's not enough for us to address for the regular adopters. Curiosity isn't enough to move from this. We need to ensure ongoing education, and that's something that's been spoken about here. For mass adoption, we need mass education. So back to Ledger and a little bit more about that. We're an industry and security first organisation. We believe in open source, and we believe in events such as Hack in the Box where we are today, and we share all of our information and our findings on our website. So anything that's security relevant, security finding, if you go to the donjon.ledger.com, you will find the reports published there. We regularly present at Black Hats with new vulnerabilities. We share our open source tools, and we also do our own capture the flag component. We also have a principle of don't trust, verify. We verify our own products. We put them through independent assessment and certification. And we also don't trust our competitors' products. So Ledger was the first company that was able to actually break hardware wallets. It was the first company that was able to actually break blockchain phones. We also don't trust our suppliers. So where we rely upon HSMs, we're actually the organisation that did the first full ownage of a HSM. And once again, these are all individual. I could come back and do an entire presentation just around that component. Once again, great publications, pieces have been put there on our website if you'd like that. So the next challenge is the security model of the exchanges, how they actually work. And I've touched on that briefly as well about if you're using an exchange that they still actually hold the keys, not yourself, you hold an account, and smart contract security. So here's another example about how Ledger is trying to help. NFTs, I haven't spoken a great deal about NFTs. But it's a billion-dollar business at this time. We're seeing through it. OpenSea, there are billions of dollars worth of transactions that are going through them. They're still using a model where it's being blindsided. So you're not actually doing the verification of it. And we're working with a plug-in so that we're able to actually secure that, and you'll be able to use the Ledger device for that. So we're trying to solve the challenges of today. This is also something that gets touched on quite regularly here at Hack in the Box, improving our product security. Offensive approach, vulnerabilities should be researched, disclosed responsibly, follow the right way to announce those. Defense in depth, once again, we spoke about earlier and we heard about the example of, well, do you do your backups? Well, no, didn't do the backups. Therefore, when you had the ransomware event, you were left with fewer opportunities on what you could actually do to respond. So manage defense in depth, code reviews, and new security layers to make the hackers' lives harder. A bug bounty program. Ledger runs a bug bounty program, so we actually do bug bounty not only for our products, but actually I run a scheme on phishing bounties where I'm asking for people to provide information around scammers, scamming sites, and if that actually comes through to us being able to do material impacts against the scammers themselves, there is actually a bounty available for that. And don't forget, developers are key. Excuse me. A secure experience begins with the developer. Developers are the customer and the entry point for almost all new customers over time. We've got to leverage the growing ecosystem and make the stacks more friendly. Developers want more freedom and open source sharing with Web3, and that's exactly what we're doing. And now is the time to build tools that show security as an essential part of that process. Complexity. Now, I've touched on this 3 or 4 times through the presentation, and complexity is the enemy of security. We've got to build tools that shorten the distance between the Web3 application and security. We've got thousands of tokens and 140 apps created by developers. But the key essentials are the same things, and again, I've spoken about this. You've got to protect the private keys, and what you see is what you sign. We also believe in making the developers' lives easier, and don't overcomplicate it. So we keep on hearing security is getting in the way, slowing us down, and we need to push this feature to production. They're the biggest fears. We don't want to keep hearing those things. We've got to make life easier. So bring the security tools to the developers. So we do automated code evaluation during development, training, make sure the developers know how to write good and secure code, integrate the standard tools and embed the world. And we've got to get rid of hardware during development, so a lot more time building emulators. It makes it a lot easier and a lot faster. So whether you like it or not, the world is changing. You cannot pretend that this trend is going away, but you do have the power to make it more secure. We have more opportunities on the horizon, things like identity verification services, securing trust and title deeds. The future of banking itself is one of these opportunities. We need to bank the unbanked. So I'm going to leave you with a couple of thoughts, and these are a couple of the questions that I'm starting to ask myself. And if we can all just have a thought and takeaway as we go here. We can't pretend that it's going away, but I'd like to ask, what relevance do banks have in our future? If we're becoming the bank ourselves, how are the banks going to transform to provide those additional services or value to us if we have a shift of value itself? What's the impact of a digital or a public deed have on security? So if we're looking to secure things that we see as holding real world value, things like title deeds at the moment, how is that going to change? With a device like Ledger and the potential of identity verification services, will borders exist in the future themselves? And how do we stay on the precipice of innovation without removing security at its core? So I'll just leave you with those couple of thoughts to take away and ponder on. And before I go, I'd just like to open up the floor and see if there are any questions that anybody has for me, or if not, I will be around for the next 2 days, and feel free to come and tap me on the shoulder and have a conversation. But I very much hope to have the opportunity to come back again and then do a deep dive into some of the technical areas around the actual products themselves, what we're doing around the education awareness, and also what we're seeing about the scams and the cybercrime effect. So I'd like to do that. So I'll pause there. Any questions? You're very generous and gentle crowds to me if you're going to let me off without any questions. In which case, I would just say thank you. And once again, I very much appreciate the opportunity to be here and to present to you all. And have a great day. And I hope to see you and speak with you all soon. Thank you.